Scott Stabile. Oh, it's so. Do you know I should have checked with you before we started? Am I
You
saying your
said
name
it.
correct? Am I?
You're one of the
Yes,
few who
Stabile, right?
actually said it right
Oh,
off the
thank
bat.
God.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I can't begin to express. Thank you for your time. You are the love spreader extraordinaire, Scott. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed your book, Big Love, because sometimes I love my books. I start them and then I either don't finish them or I'll come back to them weeks or months later. But yours I read in several sessions because it was just fantastic. I just loved it. Thank
Thank you.
you. So
Thank you.
I would love to start with the question about big love because I think sometimes it's seen as I think I imagine that the whole it's become very uh, it's become very popular to perhaps sign off emails or messages with big love, which I imagine has come from your Facebook page now and then the book. It's big love Suzy, and perhaps
Yeah.
sometimes people see that as kind of very fluffy and airy fairy. Is
Yeah.
love fluffy?
Is love fluffy? Well, you know what? In moments, sure. I think love can be a lot of things, right? Like love can be very intense, love can be very gentle, but for me, in general, I see love as energy. So what that means to me is that like creativity is energy that we can work with. I feel the energy of love alive within me. I feel the energy of love alive outside of me. And so as we move through the world, we are invited to play with that energy as much as we want to. And in my experience, whenever I am playing with the energy of love, I am serving myself and others in a good way. So my experience of love is very grounded, I would say, because I know it can sound very fluffy and airy-fairy or whatever words you want to attach to it. And when people start to talk about it, others can tune out like love, 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 blah, blah, blah. But here's what I would say to really have people check in with themselves whether this is a fluffy energy. How difficult is it to actually rest in love when you're struggling with someone, when someone's pissing you off, when you see someone post online something that enrages you? Our minds automatically go to battle, to hatred, to shaming, and it can be incredibly difficult to stay connected to that energy, which for me suggests maybe this isn't as fluffy as we think it is, when in fact it's the hardest thing to connect with when we're triggered.
Yes. In fact, you say about choosing love. You said it's one of the hardest things that we're likely to attempt in our lifetime. And I see it as perhaps the most disruptive force that there can be, perhaps on the planet. And then
Yes,
it requires repeatedly going within. And so I would love, 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 because something that's noodling around in my head a lot at the moment is how do we correlate this kind of love is the kind of it sees everything, it feels everything without shutting down, without kind of going to that, shaming, ragey place. So how do we correlate activism with real love? So I'm just thinking practically, perhaps as a great
absolutely.
example is the 18th of October. You've got in the States, you've got the No
No
King's
King's
March.
Festival.
How do we go to something like that? Well, you tell me. How do we combine the two?
I
If
think
can
it's
we
such
combine the two?
it's a yes, absolutely is the answer to that last part. And I think it's such an important question, and it's something that I have been struggling with for a while now in our country. Our country is a mess on so many levels. It is the level of political cruelty that is happening here, and the level of, the U.S. is. I'm in the United States for those who are unaware, and this country politically has for many years, I mean forever, as far as I've been, there's always half who is leans more to the conservative side, half who leans more to the liberal side. And even though there's a lot of people in the middle, it tends to be fairly divided between those two lines in general, if we're trying to simplify the situation. And what's going on here? It's worse than ever. Those divisions feel more intense than ever. The vitriol and hatred coming from both sides of this spectrum are incredibly intense and hard to be with right now. And so I have, my politics are steer much more progressive. And I do not in any way support much of what's happening in our government currently. Um, and it's enraging and it's deeply dispiriting and heartbreaking. And so what I'm continuously doing with myself is working with myself not to get completely caught up in the rage, so much so that I forget my heart. Because what happens for me when I do that, which is what I see happening for most everyone, is I see myself getting taken over by my mind's hatred of these politicians whom I see as shaming and dehumanizing, and yet my mind wants me to shame and dehumanize them. And I can make 1,000 justifications with my mind to do that, to support those choices, and yet I know with certainty that that doesn't in any way serve this country. I'm sorry about that sound if you're hearing it. That doesn't in any way serve this country moving forward in a good way. Like I believe deeply, Suzy, that like anger is a powerful emotion. I'm all for anger. It gets us off our butts. It really tells us like something is not okay here, and it inspires us to speak up about it. But if all we're exhibiting is anger, if that's the only way we're showing up, what we're going to create is just another version of what we're seeing now with different people in charge and a different half of the country railing at them. And so if an energy like anger is not supported by love, is not supported by compassion, is not supported by a willingness, no matter how pissed off another person is making us, a deep willingness to recognize their humanity, to acknowledge that had I walked in their shoes and lived their lives, I might have landed in the exact same spot where they are right now. And when I'm able to do that, and we're all able to do that. Empathy is a very practical tool. We can just choose to take time to imagine the experience of another. When I do that, it allows me to open my heart. So even if I'm going to be a devoted, committed, extremely vocal activist working for what I believe to be true, if I can do that while keeping my heart open to the humanity of those who are opposing what I'm trying to do, then suddenly I believe my activism is actually in service to creating a more loving and compassionate society. And that is the only way it can happen. It can't happen without love. There are a lot of change agents on this planet. Anger is a beautiful change agent. These energies are not healers. If there is not love as a part of them, nothing gets healed. Things just get changed. And we see this. In your country, the pendulum swings back and forth, and then these people are in power, and then these, and then it's
Yeah.
a reaction to those people in power. But within it all, everyone's just raging and judging and shaming and feeling horrible about it. So
Yeah.
yes, we need love, and yes, that's the work. I've lost touch with my heart a lot in this past year. You're catching me at a really good time because a really deep shift happened for me however many weeks ago because I was really lost. I was really feeling like I was so caught up in the noise, I could not hear myself. I could not feel my heart. I could not feel my truth. And then I've really been intentional about my morning practices and my habits, and I found myself back in my heart and I'm back in love. And so I can access this very easily now. And the thing about it is it never left me. It was always there. I was just making choices that allowed myself to get buried underneath the insanity.
Yeah. Oh, I feel really emotional. Just hearing you articulate all of that. I think it was only just recent. I always thought it was Mother Teresa that said that, and I realized recently I don't think it was her, but the truth of it stands the same. That um, if you invite me to a anti-war march, I'm not going to be there. Invite me to a pro-peace march, I'll
Yeah.
come. And because of the kind of, I don't know who it was that said that, but the truth of it is there somewhere.
I went to the first No Kings March a couple months ago or a few months ago, whenever it was, and because I really felt the need to be around like-spirited people. And there was something really beautiful about that, because in these protests, what I'm experiencing is a couple things. One is just a general sense of excitement to be connecting with thousands of others who are really willing to say what's happening here is not it's not of the heart. It's cruel. There is so much cruelty and so much dehumanization, and we do not stand for that. We stand for something different. But I can tell you what I didn't appreciate about the march was the so much of the energy was directed at Trump, and in such an antagonistic, hateful way that
Right.
in I was all there for the celebration. And I'm all there for the message of no kings. Like, that can be said with a real clarity. This country is not about dictatorship and authoritarianism. And I can profess that loudly and clearly, while also holding myself open to being compassionate with those who are seeing it differently. We talked at the very beginning with your very first question, like, that is really challenging to do when people are suffering at the hands of those in charge.
Yeah.
And yet, that's why I'm here. And what I've discovered for myself is I do not feel at home in my being. I do not feel in any way aligned with my purpose on earth when I am out of my heart. And so it's as damaging to me as my actions could be as damaging to the world coming from that place. And I simply do not want to live like that. And I don't think it
Yes.
serves anything to live like that, frankly.
Yeah. And the political system is actually a really great example of how we've all been conditioned to see. It's like there's a collective nervous system that finds it
Mhm.
impossible to find the nuance. We've all been conditioned
Yeah.
to be like, that's black, that's white, this is right, that's wrong, they're good, they're bad. And it's like
Yes,
that kind of there's like and you see it in comment sections, and there's like an inability to
absolutely.
just come to center, as you say, and to kind of speak with clarity, but also from a place of grounded love and peace, and ain't that the
Absolutely.
work?
Yeah, ain't that the work? It's hard work. It sure is
Hard
for
work.
me.
Yeah, yep, yep, hour by hour for me.
Yeah.
um, I would be very remiss because of my backdrop. I was kind of like 42 years in a very high control, high demand belief system that could also be called referred to as a cult. I would love to know what your definition of a cult is.
Yeah, so you're referencing the fact that I wrote about my belief that I was
Yes.
in a cult. Yes, I had
Yeah.
a guru for 13 years, and why I believe it was a cult is because there very what felt like a very intentional desire to take away free will from those who were disciples, as we called ourselves, of the guru. So if we contradicted anything the guru was saying, the message from him was that you are contradicting God, that he is a puppet of God, and that everything he is telling us is for our own enlightenment. And so if you're in objection to anything, you are objecting to your own relationship with God and your own potential for enlightenment. And for me, that's super culty, right? Like, ideally, a true teacher wants their students to evolve to such a point where they don't need a teacher anymore. And I believe that my former guru, even if he said that at times, ultimately, my experience there was he really wanted his students to be dependent upon him. And for me, that's a cult. And
Yeah.
in the way that, yeah, just the way everybody adhered to that was very cultish. You couldn't say a negative thing about him. And if you did, it always got back to him immediately, and you were always called out for it, and typically in front of the circle. And it was just it and I believed in his enlightenment. He professed himself to be an enlightened master, akin to Buddha, akin to Jesus. And there were aspects of how he showed up, the magnitude of his love as I felt it. He was a very loving man. I mean, he's still alive. So, I mean, my experience of him was he had a profound amount of love to give. And when I think about enlightenment, that word, or an enlightened being, the word that comes to me is freedom, a free human being, someone not bound to any of the conditions society places on you, who is not only in their hearts with deep love and compassion, but also in their free expression of who they are. And I experienced him as the most free person I'd ever witnessed, who wasn't afraid to just be who he was, say what he was thinking and feeling. But he never was willing to acknowledge his ego. He said he had transcended it, and yet I was watching him say and do things that just felt so manipulative and so cruel in moments. And how I justified it as his student, I continuously reminded myself, well, Scott, you're not enlightened, so you don't really know what enlightenment looks like. And all of these people that you've grown to love, this community of family, essentially, they're all good with him. So maybe you are missing something here, and it's not just the teacher who was very charming and compelling. And also, I could reflect on truly never having a really positive male role model in my life, and then meeting a man who just was absolutely loving toward me and so supportive, and seeing me and giving me time and giving me attention. And then all of these people, it's really compelling cults, because it's not just the guru, it's the community. These people were so beautiful and so loving, and they all became dear, dear, dear friends until, and this is the other way I know it was a cult, until I told the guru I no longer wanted to be his student in that way, and he told the entire community to delete me from their lives, and they all did it overnight without even talking to me about it, without even communicating. They just erased me. And suddenly 25 people that I was seeing several times a week in student meetings, and just they were my life, were gone. It was
Yeah.
extremely traumatic, honestly. I'm laughing now. It's not funny. It was very traumatic, but those
Yeah.
that's how I why I believe that was a cult.
Yes, and there's so much there I can relate to. I always remember Greg Braden being asked how can people, and I think they were talking about the political sphere actually, kind of people waking up from the conditioning in that area, and he was asked how can we, if people are waking up to a belief system that no longer serves them, what they do? And he came out with, and I just remember sitting on the stairs and just bursting into tears. His words were, you thank the belief system, you thank it for where it's got you, in
Mhm.
life. How is there any what gifts would you say that coming out of something like that has kind of given you? Does that, is
Oh,
that
some big
something?
ones. I
Yeah.
mean, one, this was, I met him, I think when I was 24. This was in California, Northern California, which is very spiritual, lots of holistic and alternative everything going on there. But I came from Michigan. I'm certain I had never even heard the term enlightenment prior to meeting him in that community. And the teachings and what we were doing there, they were deeply rooted in love. So he, with his teaching, and then the people I was surrounded by, everyone was pushing one another to get back into your heart. So the gift of that, because even when I left, I was so focused on enlightenment, Suzy. It's all I wanted. It's like everything I was doing was because I wanted to be enlightened someday. And so more love, more compassion, more forgiveness. But what I realized when I walked away, and I also gave up chasing enlightenment, which was a profound gift, because the chase for enlightenment created so much suffering in my experience, because I was continuously judging myself against the more enlightened version of Scott that didn't exist. So I had this fictional creation that wasn't real. And then I'm constantly looking at myself and like, but you're not that person. And then shaming myself for not being there, instead of bringing deep acceptance to where I was and who I am. So letting go of enlightenment was a huge gift. And then being really centered in love, because when I let go of enlightenment, what I realized was I still want to be as compassionate and as loving and as forgiving as I can possibly be, but it's not about achieving anything from that. It's just about, it feels really good to be compassionate and loving, and it serves people in a really good way. So that was a huge gift. And another huge gift was really being shown the kind of teacher I never want to become. And I think it's really valuable. Like it's very valuable to be shown, people modeling what you do, what you would love to exhibit. And I think it can be extremely valuable for people to model what you don't. And I came away realizing, hey, there's a good chance I might move into work that has me sharing my gifts and being seen by some as a teacher. And I will not do it this way. I don't ever want to teach in a way that disempowers people who are receiving my message. And so
Yeah,
that was great to see because I saw what it did to me. And I don't want to do that to people. Like, that
yeah,
doesn't feel good,
yeah,
So those were some valuable gifts from that experience for sure. I
yeah.
still reflect on that with a lot of gratitude, even though it ended in a very dark and painful way.
Yes. What a beautiful place to come to. Like, oh God, yeah, just so, so beautiful. You touched on acceptance there, and that really segues into a chapter that I just loved called The Coffer. Because you kind of did a deep dive there into all the things that you felt shame for in your life. And I really, really resonated with that. And I would say that sometimes the shame spirals that I still experience are so extreme and so it's intense. I suspect it's not just even from this lifetime. It can be truly grueling. But you touched on there the shame of not being able to heal cough, that even
Yeah.
with all of your metaphysical knowledge of and the knowledge that you know the possibility of healing,
Mhm.
there's still shame that you can't heal yourself. And this is sometimes what I feel in some spiritual communities. I've sensed that because I've kind of continued to kind of work with health challenges that can be very, very, very difficult to kind of deal with on a daily basis. And yet sometimes there is like a deep shame. Why can't you just heal it? You know that it's possible. I would love for you to speak to the acceptance when it comes to that. Why is acceptance so important of meeting ourselves wherever we're at? Why is the magic there? What is that about?
For me, it just brings peace, right? Like I'm not interested in going to war with any part of who I am. I've done it for many years. My experience with that is war only creates war. It is the
Mm,
only
yeah,
possibility. And so when
yeah,
you are warring with any aspect of who you are creating more war inside yourself. But conversely and beautifully, if you befriend any aspect of who you are, you're creating more friendship inside of yourself. So for me, acceptance is just like befriending, welcoming it all in without the need to judge it. And then also welcoming the judgment when it does show up without the need for that to be anything else. Like that is really deep acceptance. It's not just, we all want to accept ourselves exactly as we are, but can you accept the part of you that will never accept yourself exactly as you are? That is true acceptance for me because that there's a part of me that is likely to always struggle to accept myself, but even that part is welcome here. I don't need to go to war with that part. We're human. We're all feeling the same things. We're all thinking the same things, more or less. We're all judging ourselves in the same ways, and self-abuse is all the same. So I'm just really, really playing with like, what happens when I offer myself grace in every moment, and not as a justification for bad behavior, but as an acknowledgement that human beings cannot always we show up in the way that we would want to. And I've never shamed myself into a healing place. That is not the energy of shame, but I have often loved myself and accepted myself into a more peaceful place of being. And I want to
mm.
feel good. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yeah.
I am not some selfless Buddha. I want to feel good and love feels good, acceptance feels good. I
Yeah,
want to be peaceful, you know?
yeah. And doesn't that really play into everything from the minutiae of our own health, physical ailments to the wars in the world? How can we ever have peace, when there's war going on within? I loved that what you said about never. What was it? There was a wonderful statement about you've never found peace by going to war with yourself,
Yeah,
something
war
like that.
just creates war.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
that is never a path to peace. And
Yeah.
even in the context of all the suffering in the world, I, in my experience, there is, it is important for me to bring acceptance to the world as it is, because from that place, I feel like I have the capacity to move forward and create the kinds of changes that I feel called to create. If all I'm doing is resisting what is inside of myself or on the planet, and my energy is just going to to fighting against reality as it is, it does not serve anything. And I'm not saying you can't work to create change. I'm just saying this is the world we live in. Human beings are extraordinarily violent creatures, and I have struggled so hard to accept that. Like it can't be, this cannot be, and yet we're given countless examples every day that yes, along with being beautiful and creative and loving and compassionate, we are also deeply afraid, deeply insecure, and incredibly violent. We hurt each other, we shame each other, we dehumanize each other. This is reality. So I am more interested in accepting the reality of what is and moving forward from that place than trying to be in denial about it. You know, we're not all love and light. We are everything.
Yeah.
And the sooner you accept that, I just feel like the sooner you can, I don't know, move forward in a more authentic way about
Yeah.
it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It makes perfect sense. It really, really does. And you, oh, that there's, there's so much, so many questions, Scott. You touched on authenticity there, and I do have three questions on that. Why is it so hard to show up as our true, authentic selves? Why is that so hard?
One main reason I think is because we are conditioned within an inch of our lives to fit into a very narrow box of what is an acceptable human being, and not a single person on this planet who is honoring what feels most true for them will fit into that box. And everyone's judging everyone for not fitting into that box. But I had a great epiphany years ago. It started by feeling really just kind of discouraged by the realization that no matter what you do in this lifetime, people are going to judge you no matter what. And 2 minutes later, it was the most empowering realization because I'm like, well, shit, no matter what you do in this lifetime, people are going to judge you. So why would I ever stay in this box where I'm going to be judged for myriad reasons when I can live a more authentic life and get the benefits of living in alignment with my truth? So yeah, conditioning is it starts when we're very, very young and it runs through our entire life. And the path to authenticity, you have to confront that conditioning all the time and check in if you choose to, and check in with yourself. Like, is what I'm saying right now, is how I'm showing up right now, a conditioned response, or does this feel true in my being? And you know when how you're acting feels like a truthful way of acting because there's a sense of alignment inside of yourself. There's like a ah, this is what
Yeah.
it feels like to be really me, to express myself authentically, versus the pent up conditioned response, which might serve more people out there in the world but doesn't feel good. I don't feel aligned. I don't feel right in my being when I'm saying something that doesn't feel true or acting in a way that doesn't.
Yeah, that's so brilliant. And you've actually answered the second question, which was how can we know if we're, because I think that I would wager that a lot of humanity are walking around thinking, yeah, I'm myself. I know who I am and I'm authentic. And I think sometimes we don't even, like, I know for me, sometimes I think humor was a bit of wasn't actually coming from a genuine, authentic place. It was a bit of an armor kind of a thing. So you answered that so beautifully about just checking in. What is, oh, is this, where is this coming from? What is the intention behind this? And as you say, it's constant. It's an ongoing job.
But I would like to say yes, and you know, the more you do it, the less you're likely to have to do it as you move through your life. Like my experience of this healing journey or spiritual path is that it's my life. I'm committed to it. I love it. It's what lights me up. It's what keeps me curious. I find it really interesting to stay open to and discover new things about myself and new ways that others operate. And with it's a skill, and I think like any skill, the more you practice at it, the better you become. So it's like the gaps. I have a self-abusive mind, like everybody's mind, but the gap between the self-abuse and me finding my way back to self-love has become smaller and smaller. So I rarely am mired in hours long abuse before I've come in and be like, oh, honey, you're beautiful. You are so worthy of love. You're okay. This is just what's happening right now. And so for me, that's how I can see that this work really does make a difference because I'm just not living in the muck as long as I used to be living in the muck.
Yeah.
And then I come back to the muck again and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I've been doing this work for so long and I'm back here. And then we can talk about acceptance again, like accepting the muck. It's like, okay,
Mm.
I'm in the muck. Right? It's so often, Suzy, I think our suffering is created by what we're thinking about what we're experiencing even more than what we're experiencing. Like I'm in the muck. I feel like crap today. Okay, but then my mind comes in and is like, you're a loser. You've been on this spiritual path for 20 some years and you're still
Yeah.
back in this muck. You should be ashamed, right? Like that's what the mind does. And then suddenly we're really suffering when before I was just like, I'm just in the muck. Like,
Yeah.
what, you know, we're
I do.
constantly judging our experience and then we
Mm.
suffer from the judgment.
Oh, yeah. What is one step do you think that everyone could take within the next 24 hours to rock up more as their truest selves, the most authentic selves?
Well, look, if for those listening and watching, if you're up for it, start getting curious about your motivations, right? Just in a not in a shaming way, not in a judgmental way, just in a really open and curious way. If you watch yourself saying something or you see yourself acting in a way, and when you check in with your body, our body is giving us information all the time. If you're saying something and you're feeling like a little tightness in the chest as you're saying it, get curious. What's this about? Why is my body reacting in a way to my words right now that doesn't feel entirely peaceful? And if you're open to that exploration, you're going to discover a lot of things about how you're showing up in your life. If you're with a person you've been friends with for 20 years and you start to pay attention, like, wow, yeah, I've had this friend for 20 years, but every time we hang out, I walk away feeling really depleted. That is incredibly important information, right? Because part of our conditioning is also like, you never walk away from a 20-year friendship. Where's your loyalty? Like the history is there. You never walk away from a family member, even if they disrespect and emotionally abuse you for decades. It's like these rules that we're given about relationships are insane. But if you can get in the habit of checking in with yourself and being like, I'm feeling really depleted right now. What have I been doing for this last hour? Oh, I've been doing this thing. And then you can ask yourself, is this something I really want to continue doing? I know that I've been showing up every Friday afternoon for pickleball or whatever, or at 11 a.m., but I never feel really great about it. Is there an opportunity here to make a change? And we can do that. We can be doing that from a place of curiosity and openness throughout our days whenever we're feeling a little tightness or depletion or whatever it is, or when we're feeling really excited. It's like, oh my God, I feel really high right now. Why might that be? Oh, because I'm spending time with Sarah again, and I just love the connection that's being fostered here, right? Like there's so much communication coming at us that lives outside of our conditioned responses. And if we can start honoring those communications that are coming from our hearts, from our souls, from our body, we're likely to find that our lives are going to start looking a bit more fulfilling than they had
Mm.
prior.
Oh, wonderful. And so speaking of fulfilling, there was a chapter you wrote about starting things but not kind of continuing on with them, and it was
Yeah.
such a I loved that chapter because I same. I would actually reframe it as multi-passionate, but there we go.
Yes, I like that.
And I think that if we're starting a business and we're trying to put our expression and our magic out into the world and we're multi-passionate, I think sometimes we can be quite scattered is my is my own personal journey, and we kind of don't quite know where to put our attention. And do you have any winsome words to multi-passionate business kind of people putting out their
Yeah, well,
magic?
I'm one of those people as well. So, I mean, the first thing I feel inclined to say is just there's nothing wrong with that way of being, right? So, my mind for years berated me for starting things and then just being really excited about them for 2 weeks and then being like, okay, what's next? Like I saw that as a real character flaw, a deep character flaw. And why is that a character flaw? Who says that's a character flaw? I've had some extraordinary experiences for 2 weeks at a time. Like I've gotten to play and explore many different things. And what I've noticed about myself is that I've tended to come back to the handful of things that light me up the most. So for instance, the work that I do, talking about love, leading groups about love, like this is something for years and years and years that I consistently return to, which tells me to like trust that. You and all, if you're here, if you're listening to this and you're like, but I'm not finding the thing that I'm consistently coming back to, that's okay too. Like, but if what you're also asking, Suzy, in this is like, well, yeah, but I need to earn an income and I'm all over the place and so I can't get which I also experience, have not just in the past but even still currently. Um uh how would I respond to that? You know, I don't feel like I have a good response for that. I can just share with you what I'm doing in my life right now, which sometimes as a person who's multi-passionate, I love that way of framing it. I'm someone who uses to-do lists and I write to-do lists and I love the lists. Like it's really helpful for me. And I consistently get completely overwhelmed by my lists of things to do. So a tangible practice that I will do that is very helpful for me is to literally look at that list and just take one thing from that list and start a whole new list that is just one thing. And and in those moments, it's like, this is what you're doing right now, and just do it. And that can be really, really challenging. But I find for me that makes it really helpful when I'm looking at a list with just one thing on it and giving my energy to that in the moment. And then also, I'm really good at, because I get very distracted very easily. I'm getting better at rewarding myself, not being punitive when I'm not showing up the way I'd like, but being rewarding when I am. So it's like, yeah, I'm working on a new book right now, and my commitment has been like 4 hours a day. And so what I do is I break those 4 hours up into one. I set an alarm for an hour, and when the alarm goes off, I offer myself something for 10 minutes. It's like, now make yourself a nice cup of tea, or now take a little stroll around the block. It's like these types of rewards that kind of incentivize me to keep focused on what it is I really feel called to be doing now, even if it's hard for me to do it.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yes.
What I would love to hear how would you answer that question?
I'm very much work in progress on that
Yeah,
question.
same.
Because I do kind of sometimes there's so many little avenues that I see that, oh, I would really like to do this and I'd really like to start that. And sometimes it's I I'm very big picture, and actually getting down and kind of get it set with some structure can be a bit of a challenge for me. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I feel you. And I
Yeah.
would encourage us who are like that when we are is also to consider potentially the part of that is actually resistance to doing the thing we feel most called to do. Because I've
Mm.
noticed that there's a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. Have you read
Yeah.
it?
Yes, love that
It's
book.
yeah, it's and it's all about the ways resistance is incredibly crafty at manipulating
Mm.
our actions. And one of those ways is with those kinds of distractions. And
Yeah,
so yeah, so that's another thing to consider when we're checking
yeah.
in with ourselves. Like, is what you could we could even ask ourselves. I'm saying we because I can be doing this as well. It's like when I'm ready to run off to this next thing, I could check in with myself. Wait a minute, might this be my resistance showing up right now? And if it is, how can I go about being with this resistance in a way that also allows me to move forward in alignment with what it is I really want to be focused on in this moment? You know, play
Mm.
with that question.
Yes, it really does come back to the inner work again. Everything comes back to going within,
Everything comes
doesn't
back to
it?
it. Yeah.
And to just kind of sitting in silence or taking 10 minutes to breathe and kind of think, oh, what's really wants to come through me, right now? What am I distracting myself from? Um, two of my favorite chapters were flop and just love, where you kind of really um do a deep dive into two things in your life that really tanked. And
Yeah.
I chuckled through all those chapters, and it was beautiful the way you extrapolated the lessons kind of from that. And I think that for me what came out there is our intense fear of visibility, being shamed, starting something and it not finishing or it not succeeding, and then what people will think, being judged. This
Yeah.
is like, and that's one of the reasons why I started these conversations, the art of expression, because I just see that across the board, this intense
Yeah.
fear of failure in a sense, or
Yes.
fear of visibility. I would love to know if you have a protocol for those kind of first 24 hours, first, 48 hours when a shame spiral hits. Is there anything, do you have any go-tos to
Well,
kind of work through that?
I mean, I think, I return to two questions. I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Byron Katie and her work?
Yes, yes.
So the first two questions in her inquiry journey called The Work is just, is it true? And can you absolutely be certain that it's true? And when I ask myself, because shame is telling us we're inherently flawed, it's not even about that you did something that failed, it's that you are a failure. That is the voice of shame. And I find it incredibly helpful to interrogate that when my mind is heaping that type of abuse on me, trying to convince me that I'm somehow unworthy or unlovable, because those things are lies, right? So on a grand scale, I would say that we need to get we need to understand first and foremost that our minds are often lying to us. We don't learn that. What we learn is to believe our thoughts, and yet a, a decent percentage of our thoughts are not true. So if I were to believe everything my mind told me about myself, you wouldn't have invited me to be on your show. I assure you, I wouldn't have been writing a book called Big Love. It would have been Big Hatred. So, knowing that your mind is often lying to you whenever it is suggesting you are in any way unworthy, it's a total lie. So investigate it, and not from a place of war. That's what's so important. Like, don't go to war with your mind. It is relentless. It will never stop fighting. But from a place of curiosity, when your mind is saying nobody loves you, is that true? Like, you can investigate that inside of yourself. And then even if your initial response is, of course it's true, nobody loves me. And then like, can you be absolutely certain that's true? And when I ask myself that question, it is never true what my mind is telling me. And so that kind of helps nudge me out of this belief system in the moment that I am somehow horrible, like with the Oogie Loves. So for people who don't know, I wrote a movie that is still to this day the lowest grossing wide release film in history. It is the biggest flop of all time. So, and I can say that with genuine like laughter and joy now, but that was not the case. But what my mind would tell me is that everyone right now is judging me for that movie. And it's like, can I be absolutely certain that everyone is judging me for that movie, or everyone thinks I'm an absolute failure, or everyone thinks I'm the worst writer on the planet? It's like these statements just, we can't know, and we're so good at making assumptions about what others are thinking of us. And when you start to interrogate it with those types of questions, those types of assumptions tend to break down a bit more easily. And then within that, also know, like, if you put something out into the world that flops, it's painful. That's like, you don't need to skip the part where you feel like crap about it, because it's rejection, and rejection stings no matter how wise you are and how whatever you are. If you get rejected by a person or a group of people or the US movie going audience population, it's gonna hurt. And like, just be with the hurt. That's part of this experience too. Again, it's when we judge that as something wrong, we're gonna suffer more than just the reality of like, wow, my movie tanked. Lots of people are making fun of the movie, and like, okay, that's just what's going on right now. It's painful, it hurts, it's a little embarrassing, and okay, kind of comes back to acceptance again.
Yeah, yeah, and how and the difficulty in sitting with the pain, and then so then we will. I think sometimes think some people are projecting out their pain and not even realizing that what's underneath it is their own stuff.
That's
You know?
everything. That's
Yeah,
everyone's doing. We're all
yeah,
doing that
yeah,
all over. And we're
yeah,
destroying, we're like hurting the world profoundly because of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and so that kind of leads me to one of my final questions actually, on forgiveness. I wonder if I can find your quote on forgiveness that you said, when we root ourselves in the present moment, no longer victims to our painful past, we take ownership of our reality and eliminate the possibility of blame. That was you. And I think if there's anyone, Scott, who has the right to project and to be rageful, it would be you. And it was profoundly moving reading about, the work that you've done to forgive I don't know whether I can say it without the emotion, the work that you put in to forgive the murderer of your mum and dad. I
Mm,
found that profoundly moving. What
thank
do
you.
you think is the impact of that when we are tender to that degree, when we kind of really put in that work tender with ourselves, with each other? What do you think is the ripple effect on the world?
Well, the ripple effect on me was freedom. Like, to be untethered to all the hatred that I felt toward that man was one of the great gifts of my life. And for me, that was a clear indicator of the power of love in action, because forgiveness is just love in action as I see it. And it is probably the most triggering thing I talk about. People get very angry when you suggest that they need to forgive other people. And I'm not here to tell anyone they have to do anything. I'm not here to tell you you have to forgive. I don't think forgiveness is something we can choose. You can't call it out of the sky. I have learned that I believe in forgiveness, period. So I do see it as love. So for me, I don't see things as unforgivable. It's not the lens through which I see things. Um, and with the man who killed my parents, the way I found myself to forgiveness was through empathy, like really, really doing my best. And the only reason I sought out forgiveness was because I was really cognizant of the physical and emotional toll it was taking on me to hate him and to wish him
Yeah.
dead and to imagine horrible scenarios of his death. That's not a way to live, honestly. It's not a good way to live as far as I'm concerned. So it was just, I just like really worked with imagining like how would this man have murdered my parents along with one of their employees, three people, unless he felt incredibly lost, incredibly angry, incredibly hopeless, incredibly unseen and unloved. And when I reflected on that, what I really felt was like, I feel lost and angry and hopeless and unseen and unloved. I feel all of those exact same things. And even the violence, which was something, well, I could never relate to this violence. When I got honest with myself, I'd been visualizing horrible deaths for him for years. So, no, I had no intention of perpetrating them, but even the violence, of course, I could relate to the violence. I've wished death on people. Like, that's violent. Um, so it just, once I started doing that, I just noticed my heart start to come into the picture in a bigger and bigger way until I would think about him and I'm like, my God, I feel like I'm feeling love for this man. And then it's like forgiveness just showed up. I didn't choose it out of the sky, but being so empathetic and really intentionally empathetic got me to a place where I'm like, I've forgiven him. I am not tethered in a toxic way to this experience anymore. I'm still affected by the choice he made and it profoundly impacted by what he chose to do. But I really came to see him as just another human being and like a brother on this planet who struggled and suffering and made a terribly harmful decision. But it makes him no less worthy of love than I am. And
Mm.
that's life changing. This I feel like we just came full circle again because that's what love can do. That is the power of love. And what is more powerful than that? What is more powerful than Nelson Mandela coming out of being imprisoned for 27 years and making a conscious decision to forgive those who imprisoned him? This is how we heal things. That's the
Yeah.
ripple effect, you know.
Mm. And doesn't it just show the that it can't be done without showing deep empathy for ourselves? It has to start with the real go into the darkest nooks and crannies and finding a way to kind of deeply love ourselves, which I think it's always fascinating to me because I think if you'd have asked me, some years ago, do you love yourself, Susie? I'd have been like, oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. And then you start on the awareness path and you realize there's anything but love going on within, like, and that and hence
Absolutely.
all the anger that was there and all of the other stuff.
Hey,
um
listen, I'm like, I feel like in the eyes of people, I'm the self-love guy, and I give workshops on self-love for years, and I'm consistently learning and seeing new parts where, oh my God, there is still self-loathing. There is still so much judgment. There's still so much lack of acceptance. Like I'm being awakened to this in myself with regularity. And again, I come back to the word curiosity and openness. It's like, and gratitude. Thank you for showing me this place too. I do, I'm interested in living in as deep alignment with self-love as possible because I know that how we relate to ourselves informs how we relate to everyone and everything else. And the more in love with yourself you are, the more love you will have to shine on others in the world. It's the only possibility.
yes, and I think that's what comes across in your book throughout, though, is just how it's it's written from such a deeply humble place. And yeah, I mean, I as I say, I just loofing love your book. Um,
Oh, thank you so much.
and I also,
I'm really touched by that. Thank you.
well, I think as well, I always know when I'm with someone who opens up my own heart because I'm just a blubbering mess throughout. And I know that when we finish this call, I'll just go off and cry in a really beautiful way because I know that I'm in the presence of someone who just wants to love, but in a very, in all of the depth that we've spoken about, final question then, Scott, is what is the kindest thing that you've done for yourself in recent times? How can you inspire us all to be
Um,
super kind to ourselves?
I'm pretty kind to myself in general, so I would say what is one, the first thing that came to mind, honestly, is and now I feel like I'm gonna cry. I've let myself open my heart to a truly beautiful man
Ah,
and really give myself over to loving him and to receiving his love. And
oh,
so I would say
it's really
that's the
moving.
kindest thing that I've done for myself.
And we
Yeah.
thank him for dealing with the plumber in the background right now as we speak.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah, I love that so much. I also love in your book, finally, I love in the book when you speak about the how some people struggle with being still and just daydreaming, and you say, I've never had that problem. And I'm exactly the same. I could just sit and stare into the middle distance forever.
That's a gift. I'm so
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah, to share when everyone's kind of struggling to just kind of stop. Bless you, Scott. Thank you deeply for your time and your generosity today. So grateful. I'm going to put all of your links beneath this chat. Is there anywhere particularly you would like to direct people to?
Probably I mean, Substack is probably my favorite place. Yeah,
Yeah,
too. And I will
I love
share with everyone, if it's okay, just that my dear friend David Gandelman, who's a meditation teacher, and we give a retreat every year, and we just announced next year's is going to be in Sardinia. So
I
for all of
saw
you,
that email. Yeah.
yeah, for all you Europeans, it's actually an easier trek for some of you. So
Yeah.
if you feel the call and that's something you're able to do, join us in Sardinia for breathwork
Yeah.
and meditation and a lot of love.
Well, David was my teacher last year in meditation teacher training, so I can only imagine the fun and flapdoodle that you two would create together. So yeah,
Yeah, we have a lot of laughter and a lot
yeah.
of fun for sure. And Susie, I just want to say thank you so much. And I know you called yourself a blubbering mess, but my experience of you is this deeply composed, heartfelt, lovely human. I'm really,
Oh,
really appreciate you inviting me on.
bless you, Scott, bless you. Thank you for your time. Hey,
All righty. Much love.
farewell.
Yeah.